Good evening, everybody. Welcome. This is Two-Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin. It's Thursday, February 26th, 5 o'clock here in the East. It's 6 o'clock in Chicago. No, it's 4 o'clock in Chicago. 5 o'clock in Denver. No, it's 3 o'clock in Denver. Time zones just don't do it for me. Anyway, two big stories, and well, I'd say three big stories, and two great guests, and some littler stories. We're going to run through everything with our normal format. Lots of sound bites to look at with our guest, former South Carolina Congressman Joe Cunningham, Kristin Davison, Republican Uber strategist, and your participation. If you're here on the platform, you want to get in on the conversation, please raise your hand. If you're watching on X or on YouTube, please no smack in the chat. That's the basics, table stakes, what we like to do here. Here's what I see the three big stories that we're going to talk about tonight. One is the Iran negotiations. And I'll just tell you, going into the negotiations in Geneva today, most everybody I knew, both people with actual information and people who operate on Ouija boards and Spidey sense, thought that a pretty major American/Israeli strike against Iran was going to happen by the weekend. That was, you couldn't find anybody who didn't think that. And during the negotiations, the Omani interlocutor and the Iranians were quite favorable about the negotiations. And now there's some U.S. voices who seem favorable. And in theory, the Iranians have till next week to come back with an additional fleshed out offer. Now, this is very confusing to me for a variety of reasons, including they don't seem to be addressing terrorism, regime change, or ballistic missiles, long-range missiles, or intermediate-range missiles. It's really focused on the nuclear stuff. And what's on the table in terms of the nuclear stuff, I'd be surprised if the president thought he could sell that to a lot of constituencies. So it's not clear to me why this didn't end, given what seems to be on the table, with the U.S. stalking out of the talks and saying the Iranians aren't serious. But that's not where we are. So I'm a little confused about where we are, to tell you the truth. But it seems like the Iranians have been given more time to come back with an offer that might be acceptable. Now, maybe the U.S. thinks they need to go every extra mile. I don't know. But we'll talk about that with our guests. Second is, at this hour, Hillary Clinton is still testifying in Chappaqua, New York, in front of the House committee investigating everything or some things Epstein. And nothing has come out of her testimony. No leaks and no updates, except that Congressman Boebert texted or emailed a picture of her testifying, or a couple pictures, to Benny Johnson. No, what should I say Benny's title is? Podcaster, provocateur,
podcaster, YouTube host.
YouTube host. Benny Johnson posted on social media some pictures and said they were from the Congresswoman, and that caused Secretary Clinton to say that she only would testify in public. So there's a big brouhaha about that, a Chappaqua brouhaha. We'll show you some of that paper trail on that. And then lastly, the vice president is in Wisconsin and did a big event. He was in Wisconsin. I believe he's already back, pretty sure. And a lot of sound bites from him, which are interesting to see what kind of message the administration wants to drive out of State of the Union. Also interesting to me in my ongoing evaluation and that and monitoring the evaluation of others on the question of does this guy have game? Gavin Newsom today said that basically said he thought the vice president was a worse person than the president, which of course for Gavin Newsom saying a lot. Anyway, I'll be interested in what Kristin and Congressman Cunningham have to say about just the performance level of the vice president. And then I'm also going to get them to comment on this thing I talked about here on the program last night with Jeff Rowe and Jamie Harrison. And I talked about in my Next Up monologue earlier today, available to you now on podcast platforms and YouTube, which is the difference between campaigns and politics. And they're both practitioners of all of that. So eager to hear from them on that. And as I said, eager to hear what you all think. If you want to be in on the conversation, please raise your hand and we'll get to you before too long. It's possible that during our time together, Secretary Clinton's deposition will break up and people will come to microphones, and I will find that relatively irresistible to cover. So we'll cover some of that. Quick word from a sponsor, then our guest, and then we'll start with Iran. Sponsor tonight, Cozy Earth. The good people at Cozy Earth like you all so much. They like you so much. They want to give you 20% off all Cozy Earth products at CozyEarth.com. What they're trying to do is tempt you, as I do on a daily basis, to try their products and see that at the price point they're at and the quality they're at, you, as a Crazy Eddie would say, you'd be crazy not to try these things. Buy the sheets, the bubble cuddle blanket, the towels, the pants. I'm not wearing my Cozy Earth pants today, and I ran into someone who fancies the Cozy Earth pants, and he cross-examined me, and I didn't really have a good answer as why I'm not wearing them, except you can't wear them every day. Then you start to look like obsessive. Anyway, I wear them most days. Go to CozyEarth.com, use the promo code two-way for 20% off everything on the site. And I'll give you your money back if you don't like them. How's that? How's that for a spontaneous host offer? If you buy anything from Cozy Earth under $4,000 and you don't like it, write me an email. I'll give you your money back. CozyEarth.com, promo code two-way for 20% off. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Our guests. These guests are not available to you just anywhere. They're available here, though. Here's Kristin Davison. Kristin, welcome in.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
What do you think if I have somebody from Axiom on every day? What do you think of that idea?
I mean, you got the best.
Who would I get next? Who'd be the third player to be named later?
Oh, I don't know. You're asking me to pick amongst siblings, you know?
I don't know. Who could I pick? Here's Congressman Cunningham. Congressman, welcome in. Thank you for being here. You maybe need to unmute.
You should have Jeff and I on together and see where we disagree.
I would like to get you and Jeff on together. Congressman, are you unmuted there?
Yeah, I can hear you loud.
Do you know this firm Axiom? You ever heard of them?
No, not particularly.
All right, so they, like a lot of firms, they do corporate affairs, they do some politics. They worked with Ted Cruz's presidential campaign. They got the governor of Virginia elected, that rich business guy who wore a vest. What was his name, Kristin? Glenn Youngkin. Congressman, guess how many employees Kristin's political and corporate consulting firm has? How many employees do you think work there? What would you guess?
I reminded that old joke. About half of them. I mean, work there.
Yeah, that's a good joke. How many people do you think they list on the payroll? What would you guess? They're a big firm. I'll give you a hint. They're a big firm.
Okay. 45.
45. That'd be a mammoth, right? That'd be like one of the biggest. 280.
Wow.
280. And if you Google, you'll find they make a lot of money at that firm. I don't know.
You have to feed 280 mouths,
280
right?
people, right?
Yeah.
Kristin, you give all those people health insurance, retirement?
To be honest, if I understood business and how all that works, I'd probably be retired and figured all that out. So I leave that to smarter people.
All right.
Kristin, could I find any donors for me in that firm if I run for office again?
Yeah. Depends. Are we going to switch parties? We'll get you there. We'll get you there.
Just so you know, Congressman, Axiom is not one of those bipartisan firms. Kristin's probably the most. Kristin's probably the most moderate person in there, and she thinks Ted Cruz is a squish. That's the nature of this firm.
I was with Rubio in 2016, so that's
Is that true? I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, his stock's risen. Okay, let's talk first about Iran because it's really a massive story. And here's my new theory. And again, I can't tell you what's going to happen, but it does not look like there's going to be a strike this evening. I think the president now believes, and this is piecing together. This is not from the president or Stephen Miller, so who else would matter? But I think the president's view is, unlike other presidents, because of the military buildup, because of his reputation of being a tough guy, because of Venezuela, that he can actually make a deal with the Iranians, that kind of a Nixon goes to China type thing. And people aren't going to say, even if it's a deal that the neocons don't like, it's all right. Not everybody will say that, but enough people will say that he has the latitude to make a deal that avoids a war, but doesn't necessarily rock solid stop the threat of Iran. Kristin, thoughts on that kind of geopolitical domestic politics thought?
I mean, that's a good approach. I don't think there is this is not a clear policy. Like, there's no one policy that's going to win over everyone, right? So this is going to be one where it's not as clear as some other conflicts. I think even, my fellow Republicans in the neocon bucket are hesitant when it comes to Iran. And so this is it's way more complicated than I think anything we have seen thus far in this administration. And so I think the approach of keeping options open and showing, tempered strength is probably the best way to come out on the best side of it politically. But it is a lot more complicated than anything we've seen here before.
Congressman, what kind of latitude does the president have to make a squishy peace deal?
Well, I mean, I think any deal is ultimately going to be, ridiculed by people, probably on both sides. But I think the goal has to be pretty simple, to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. And I agree that diplomacy is it's a tool, not a concession. And look, but it's got to be backed by verification. And I think any deal should include strict inspections and some type of enforcement mechanisms, so it has teeth to it.
Yeah. This is an impossible question to answer, but you'll do your best. If we sent 1,000 monkeys to 1,000 diners in the middle of the United States and all over and asked them to gauge public opinion, my sense is that people like us in the media, diplomatic types, they talk obsessively about this. But my sense is it would take a lot to get most normal people in America to give a rip about either a deal that some people didn't like or bombing. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think people really like if lots of Americans died, like lots, I think people would care. But otherwise, I just don't get the sense nobody brings this up to me. I don't see public opinion polls suggesting it's a big deal. Congressman, am I wrong about that or right?
No,
about
I don't
that,
think it's a top tier issue. I think the majority of Americans would be hard pressed to put their finger on Iran on a map. More or less are concerned about the geopolitical affairs until it starts stepping on toes of Israel. But as far as a top tier issue, no, I don't think it's
but what would have to, I know it's not now top tier, but what would have to happen, Congressman, do you think, for this to be like a thing people, would talk about at a Little League game?
I mean, we'd have to lose American lives.
But like 20? I don't mean to be cavalier about it, but I think it would take a lot of loss.
I think every life is a story. I mean, we saw with the withdrawal from Afghanistan. I mean, that was a huge story that still plagues Biden to date.
Yeah.
And what how many dozen lives lost there. So I mean, any life is going to be a news story, but to ramp up to being a top tier issue that people are talking about, as opposed, it's got to be able to push aside other conversations like the price of people's groceries, the rent, home prices, things like that.
Yeah. Kristin, the Wall Street Journal will not like a squishy deal. My friend Mark Wallace won't like a squishy deal. Will MAGA be upset at all if the president makes a deal with Iran that neocon says is insufficiently tough?
I don't believe so. And I think the risk here is that success will not get the attention and the celebration that it deserves. And it'll be hard to define, but failure will be loud and clear. So that's, kind of where you need to go. I think MAGA will probably view success as a more withdrawal standpoint. But to the point you made earlier, whether this is a top issue, I look back, I think it was the Washington Post, ABC had a poll out earlier this week that showed voter enthusiasm coming into the midterms. I mean, someone like me, this is all we're focused on, right? We're just focusing on getting our voters out this year. How are we going to win? This is not one of the top issues for that. And when you look at the generic ballot, Dems at 47, Republicans at 45, you see that, okay, we're even, we're doing a lot better than we thought. When you look at the voter intensity and you see Democrats leading Republicans by about 13 points and who is definitely going to turn out, it leads me to believe that the generic ballot is close because Democrats have still not righted the ship on their brand. They are still not figuring it out. But Republicans, our enthusiasm is waning because we need to get back to talking more about these affordable issues that people at those diners with the monkeys are talking about. And it's not about whether we get a deal in Iran. That doesn't mean the administration shouldn't do it. But if we're talking about the politics and the messaging of it and what the Wall Street Journal says, I don't think that someone sitting in Dubuque, Iowa is going to care what the Wall Street Journal thinks. Yeah. What they're going to care about is if their gas prices go up because of it, right? They're going to care about whether or not the, easy eggs over easy they got are more expensive while they're sitting there. And what Republicans really need to get their enthusiasm up is, the overall complaint with the base and MAGA and Trump is that we have been focusing to, just from a messaging standpoint, we have to be able to walk and chew gum here. A lot of the stuff is going on in the world that we need to focus on, but it can't be at the expense of talking about all the work that the administration continues to do to bring up wages, bring down prices, and continue to go from there.
Just so you know, every one of those monkeys orders pancakes with bananas. Every one of them. Same order.
Naturally.
Syrup on the side. Okay, I'll leave it to you guys. I'm a little torn about whether we talk about Secretary Clinton next or Vice President Vance, because I'm waiting to see if she comes out and she talks or the members talk. So we'll do a vote by show of hands. Just the two of you, close your eyes if you're uncomfortable voting in front of the other. Congressman, raise your hand. Kristin, raise your hand if you want to do the Vice President first. Raise your hand. And raise your hand if you want to do Secretary Clinton first. All right, Congressman?
I'm ambivalent. I'll tackle either, whichever one.
In South Carolina, we call it agnostic, not ambivalent.
Agnostic.
All right, we'll do Secretary Clinton first because that's what Kristin chose. Congressman, do I remember correctly? You have some connection to Secretary Clinton, or am I making that up?
You're making it up.
Making up. Do you know her at all?
I've never met her, no.
Never met her. All right. I wonder what I'm thinking of. All right. So as I said, she went in. Before she went in, both the Republicans and Democrats held separate press conferences. They said nothing at all surprising, I'm here to tell you. And the reporters were eager to hear from the chairman about whether, Chairman Comer, about whether he'd call Howard Lutnick or the president or other Republicans. And he said maybe. So he didn't really say that he'd call him. He couldn't really explain why he wouldn't. Secretary Clinton put out a letter, not a letter, her opening statement, 3 or 4 pages. It's very well done, I have to say, for what it is, just as a piece of professional political rhetoric. It's extremely well done. And she basically says, if you're serious about victims of sexual abuse, here's all the things you should do, including not cutting funding, as the Trump administration has, for a bunch of stuff that would deal with these issues globally. And she said she knows nothing about anything having to do with Jeffrey Epstein, sex trafficking, never met him, never been to the island, etc. And then the deposition got underway. And number 2, please. Congresswoman Boebert, I'm sure she knew she wasn't supposed to do this. It's pretty clear she wasn't. Took a picture of the former Secretary of State, and she texted it to Benny Johnson. Here's the New York Times headline. I'm going to put this up here so I can see it. Clinton halts her Epstein deposition after a Republican leaks a photo from the hearing room. I don't really call that a leak. I call it just a brazen disregard for the rules. Here's the picture, as long as it's going to be available to the world. Here it is. Number 3, please. I don't know why this upset her so much, except I guess it violated the rules. This is the wide shot. Do we have the close-up?
Number 4.
Yeah, number 4. I think maybe there were a couple photos. So here you go, or maybe that's just a push in. Now, that is Cheryl Mills. For those of you who are longtime students of the Clintons' legal representation, she's been a Clinton lawyer in government and private sector for just about forever, and all the way back. And then, is that David Kendall? I think it is. So that's another person who's been a Clinton lawyer for just about forever. I'm a little surprised by that. These two are hot buttons for Republicans, and David Kendall's been at this for a long time, but the Clintons have a lot of trust in them. These are two folks who've been in the bunker with the Clintons through all the legal and political scandals that they've had and controversies that they've had. Congressman Boebert, apparently not expressing the level of regret that she might, tweeted this, number 5, please. I have to say, not only is it exacerbating the issue, but it's not that funny. She subtweeted a Hill tweet, Democrats fume after Boebert leaks deposition photo of Hillary Clinton. And she tweeted, no U.S. ambassadors were harmed in the taking of today's photo. Congressman, you've been a congressman. You've been served in the House. How would other members, do you think, feel about that? Would Republican members think, yeah, what's the big deal? Or would they think, she shouldn't have done that?
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with it, and I disagree with that style of politics. Unfortunately, it seems like it's where we are in this day and age, where people are leaking photos or private conversations and bringing this into the public sphere. But I mean, look, as to the testimony and the hearing as a whole, I just don't see this being a good issue for Republicans to be putting a lot of focus on, being that President Trump and his administration are littered throughout the Epstein files. And not only that, but the precedent it sets, because we all know that the shoe will be on the other foot. And it'll be Democrats in power that will be able to subpoena past presidents, including President Trump. And then it puts us in a situation where if he defies the subpoena, what to do about that? It's not good for, I don't think it's good for Republicans, quite frankly, but more largely, it's not good for democracy, I don't think.
not good for democracy to bring the Clintons in or to investigate it, or
to set this precedent when we know the motive is strictly political. Look, the focus should always be on the victims and bringing people in front of the committee who may have knowledge of other victims or of other crimes, but I just don't see that with Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. Kristin, I can't, I do so many shows, I can't always say for sure what's been discussed. You and I may have discussed this before, but even if we have, we're due for an update. Comer is presumed by the Democrats to just be a stooge of the White House, that this is all coordinated. But the president has said repeatedly on public occasions, don't investigate the Clintons. This is unfortunate. This shouldn't be happening. And maybe that's self-interest because he doesn't want to have happen what the congressman just suggested. Why is Comer bringing in the Clintons? Is it because he disagrees with the Congressman Cunningham's point of view that this is bad for Republicans, or he really wants to get to the bottom of it and he think the Clintons know something? Why is he doing this?
This issue has been one that has been simmering in the base. I mean, you see it focus group after focus group and poll after poll. It's not rising to the top, with our base as the top issue, but it continuously comes up because it simmers, because we as a party had been fighting against it and raised the issue, and rightfully so. I mean, there are a lot of victims here. There's a lot of justice that has not been done that needs to be addressed. And the Clintons were a big part of that and the initial calls for releasing the files and releasing information on it. And so I think Comer's being consistent with those initial calls to release information on it, and showing that this is a wide spanning list of people that need to talk through what they know about the situation. And I think it will be less dramatic than Republicans hope. I mean, to put Hillary Clinton in there today, I can't think of anyone else who has been through so many scandal and hearings. I mean, I don't know how good she is at giving a speech to inspire people, but she's pretty good at bobbing and weaving when her family's caught in a scandal. So I think she was going to be fine today. But Comer, I think, is just being consistent because this issue is not going away in our party. I don't know if I agree whether it's good or bad and focus on, proper names. I think overall our party needs to be better at handling the issue. We can't just say it's, people are forgetting it and they're not worried about the Epstein files. Like, it's there. It's going to continue to be there. As long as we ignore it, it's only going to get worse in terms of who voters are upset with, which is why I really don't understand why the Congresswoman tweeted that or sent that out. She's been actually doing a pretty good job at raising awareness on it and saying she's there for the victims, and kind of clowned herself by doing that today.
Yeah. Secretary Clinton started her opening statement at 11:20 this morning. It's now 5:20. Or 5:20, and she's still going, and there's been no readout. And again, it could happen while we're visiting here together, so we'll keep an eye on it. One last question about this. The chairman made the point today that they're not going to indict anybody. That's not what that branch does. So if you want to put the best, most public-minded gloss on explanation for why they're having these hearings, Congressman, why are they having these hearings? Not just on the Clintons, but the other things they've done. They've talked to Les Wexner. They're talking to Epstein's accountant. What's the purpose of these hearings, as you understand it, or would explain it to a civics class?
I think it's to satisfy the appetite of the base. I mean, this is an issue and something that's been.
But is there a legitimate legislative rationale for these that you can think of?
I would say it's trying to bring about some transparency. I mean, the oversight committee has always been a committee for show, right? Yeah, and when you bring on members and I got asked to be on the oversight committee, I politely declined because it is highly partisan, and a lot of it is for show. And so they're clipped, they're circulated along mainstream media, and then they're repackaged in emails as fundraising tools. So. As far as a legitimate purpose, I think it's overshadowed by just the political purpose that it's used for.
Kristin, can you think of a legitimate legislative purpose?
Well, legislative, no. Politically, they said they would do it, right? I mean, most Republicans, from Comer to other members, said release the files, and once you kind of say it's going to be done, the public expects you to do it. And so the fumble here was kind of setting expectations too high about what was going to be out there, and then not fulfilling it. So I see this as, I mean, I don't know legislatively if they can do anything, but politically and through the process, and frankly, the right thing to do to get justice for the victims is to bring it to light and shine light on this really horrible, horrible issue that, you know, our country and society's dealt with.
Yeah. All right. Thank you both. Really well said. Let's we'll keep watching it to see if any white smoke comes out of there while we're with each other. But let's talk about the vice president of the United States. First, just a little history. Kristin, who's the most fun vice president that you can think of in American history? Who would you say is the most fun?
Oh goodness. I don't know. I think Bush 41 was a lot more fun than people think. Just hearing stories about him, I think he was a prankster and just had a good amount of time. I think Dick Cheney was a lot more fun than people think, but I'm sure Biden was actually lots of fun unintentionally.
All right, it's a good list. Bush 41 liked to tell what we call in Kenny Bunkport off-color jokes. He liked really the kind of jokes that, like, if one of your parents told you, you'd be like, what's up with that? Congressman, who would you say is the most fun vice president of all time?
I'd be hard pressed. I mean, I'm thinking back right now. And it's a tie between no one.
Yeah, nobody comes to mind. Well, it turns out there's a new nominee. There's a new nominee, and it's someone self-nominating. Please roll that tape. Nope. Sorry, not that. Looking for the video.
I will say I took special note of one thing that she said, though. Kelly said that I'm the coolest vice president in American history. And I said, Kelly, that is a low standard.
All right. I blew the whole thing.
That is a very low bar, but I do think
I thought it was funniest, but it's coolest. All right. Is he the coolest vice president? Kristin, you buy that?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not very cool, so I shouldn't judge who's cool.
All right. Congressman, is he arguably the coolest vice president? He's got a beard.
Yeah, I don't know if you're the coolest. I don't think you have to be telling people that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an award that's given out by self-proclamation.
Yeah, I blew the whole thing. I thought it was most fun, but it's coolest. All right, the vice president was in Wisconsin today, campaigning in the district of a Republican incumbent who's a little bit embattled, one of the targeted races in the state, and he was, on message for very much derivative of the president's State of the Union. Here's the vice president saying that the State of the Union showed you can't put Democrats back in power. Number 16, please.
About the stakes coming up in November, because it feels like this election in November is very far away. But if anything, the State of the Union should have showed us that we cannot give power back to congressional Democrats. Now, I am fundamentally an optimist about this country. I believe most people, most human beings, most American citizens, whether they got a D next to their name or an R next to their name, or they have no political affiliation, they're good people. They love our country. They want our country to thrive and prosper. But I got to tell you, after the State of the Union, I'm not so sure that is true of the congressional Democrats that we saw at the State of the Union address. As the President of the United States said very well, you watch their reaction to some of what he was saying, and all I could think was, these people are kind of crazy. These congressional Democrats, if you think about all of the things that they were doing, and I got to tell you, of course, I've got the best seat in the House in many ways, right? I'm sitting right next to the Speaker of the House. I'm sitting right behind the President of the United States. And I've got one internal monologue going on, one thought in my head the whole time, which is don't make a stupid face for 2 hours, which is hard for me, when you're on TV for 2 hours and the Democrats are doing crazy things. So I'll give you a little lay of the land. So to the left, my left, is all of the Republicans, okay, because I'm sitting right behind the president. And to my right is some Republicans, but mostly the Democrats. And so I see the reaction of all the congressional Democrats, and it's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. So you say, like, for example, you have this beautiful little girl had such a sweet moment with her dad. You may have remembered. She was probably 6 years old. She had been assaulted by an illegal immigrant. She had had a very bad, I think, medical prognosis, but it turned out that she was okay. This 6-year-old girl hurt by a human being who never should have been in this country in the first place, who was led into this country by Joe Biden and the Democrats, and she's hugging her dad, and she's so excited, and you can tell, and I think everybody's heart feels very, you get that warm and fuzzy feeling, and then I look over at the congressional Democrats, and they're just scowling. They cannot clap their hands for a 6-year-old who survived an attack from an illegal alien. What is that? What kind of a person can't stand up and cheer for an innocent young girl who's doing well, who's showing the entire country strength and resilience?
Okay. Kristin, if he came off the stage and said, Kristin, give me some notes. How can I do better? What notes would you give him?
When you go into a district, it's such a huge moment for that candidate, that incumbent, to have the vice president there, to get all those eyes on their race, to get them that earned media. I would have recommended, let's talk more about what they've done for their district. So what have they specifically brought back to the district to show that they're a good member of Congress, not just because they're part of this national ping pong game of standing and clapping and frowning and crazy and not crazy, but they're actually there working hard for you, member of Wisconsin Forward too. I forget which district it was. So I think the big opening there that I would have liked to have seen in that speech, there's a little too much on the inside baseball of when Democrats were standing and sitting, and not enough about what the member, or if it was for a candidate challenging an incumbent, I think it was for an incumbent, but what that incumbent is doing for that district. They bring money back for public safety, or did they do something for the there's so many things that these members do that range from big ticket items to just small constituent services. And in a tough midterm election year like this year is going to be for both sides, I don't think there's a clear, this party's going to skate free. Those little things really matter. And that constituent service really matters, and how hard you work for your district. I mean, that stuff could have been displayed on national news for this incumbent who had the vice president there. And I think that was a miss not to really highlight that.
Congressman, since you've been involved in national politics, who are the most formidable stump speech givers the Republican Party have had on offer? Who are the two people you look at and say, man, that guy or that gal, they've really got it?
I think that question is probably better for Kristin. On the stump,
who can you think of who just goes out there and just kills it and knows how to talk to people and hold the crowd and rile them up?
I mean, recently,
In your whole career.
I think Youngin does a decent job of being on the stump.
Yeah. How about George W. Bush? Was he good into your ear?
Yeah, look, I think he was relatable, right? I mean, he wasn't just totally 100% refined and so well polished that it was endearing to some people. So just being able to connect, I think the vice president comes off as almost a little bit too polished, and too prepared, to where that authenticity may be lacking.
Some people get in public life, and he's not been in public life for very long, and they get better. Does he seem, Kristin, like a guy to you who stump speech abilities in 2 or 3 years when he might run for president, that he could improve?
I think he has improved. I mean, I remember when he was in last place in the Ohio Senate race right before Trump endorsed him, and he shot up like a rocket, and he improved overnight. I mean, he is a world away from where he was back in 2022. So, even the worst candidates, and I'm not going to name any of them here, but even the worst ones improve a little bit just by repetition. Yeah. And he's by far in the top. I mean, he's not anywhere close to the worst. So of course he's going to improve. I mean, I think to your point, President Bush, I think if you think back to 2006, which is arguably one of the worst midterms Republicans have had just in my lifetime, he knew when to not go into districts, right? But if he or the vice president at that time went, again, it was not so much the grandiose speech. There was a lot of the, let's do the round table with the businesses, and let's make sure we really highlight what that member's doing. I think that's, to your point, the relatability. But no, I think the vice president is going to continue to improve. I think he's already a different person than he was when he won the Senate race in 22, and I expect he'll only get better.
Yeah, his Bush 43 stump speech in the fall of '99 into 2000, I thought was extremely good, amongst the best I've ever seen a Republican give. It's just super tight, and he was consistent. And of course, the reporters all said, "Oh, it's boring. He says the same thing every time." And it's like, yeah, that's what he's supposed to do.
That's the point.
Yeah. All right. 3 quick topics for our guests, and then to your questions again as we continue to watch the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. Raise your hand if you want to get on the conversation. I was in Washington yesterday, and Kristin, are you working for anybody on the Warner Brothers communication deal? Do you have a dog in that hunt? Well, you're the only person I know who doesn't. because everybody I ran into in Washington yesterday in the consultant class, they were either working for Netflix or they're working for Paramount. I've said from the beginning that I think Paramount's going to win this for a variety of reasons. And today, Time Warner said, Time Warner, that's what it used to be called, Warner Brothers Discovery said, now the offer, the thing on offer, we put up the Wall Street Journal headline, I think, the latest offer that came from David Ellison and his dad, Warner Brothers says Paramount's latest bid is superior to the Netflix deal. Netflix has 4 business days to match Paramount's offer. Amongst the reasons I've thought from the beginning that Paramount's going to win this, Congressman, is they're going to up the offer till they win, and the shareholders have to take the best offer, and Netflix can't match this offer. Then there's all the regulatory questions. But do you have a sense, Congressman, of who's going to win this fight?
No, I don't. I mean, and a lot of these issues make me incredibly nervous. The mergers, the lack of competition in fields. I think it's an issue that not many people, neither political party has wrapped its hands around and used as an issue. But quite frankly, it should be.
Kristin, you agree with me about who's going to win? Don't know, or think Netflix is going to win?
I'm gonna defer to you. I probably could tell you who's gonna win a race more than who will win this. So I'll defer to you.
Yeah. All right. Mayor Mondami, the mayor of Gotham City, met with the president again today. It was kind of a bit of a surprise, unlike the last meeting, which had a lot of big buildup. They talked a fair amount about housing, and then there's been a bunch going on in New York City. Someone got arrested today for throwing a snowball at a police officer, and then a student at Columbia. Do we have an element on this, Noah?
Yes.
Yeah. This is
number 12.
Number 12. This Columbia student, Elmina Agayeva, there she is. She was arrested by ICE, and the president asked that they release her. And the mayor of New York just tweeted that yes, she's been released. Another sign of the somewhat surprising Trump Mondami closeness. And here's the snowball thing, number 14. 27-year-old arrested for throwing snowballs at NYPD. It's just a perp walk here of the snowball wielding assailant. I can't tell you really why we're showing this, because to me this is a local story, but it's Gotham City, so somebody gets arrested for that. Anyway, the mayor's been facing criticism from the police because he was insufficiently, in their view, critical of the snowball throwers. So here's what I want to ask you two, because you guys don't live in New York. For months, we were told if Mondami won, or weeks, I guess, that he'd be the face of the Democratic Party, and there'd be daily coverage of everything he does. There's some national coverage, but trust me, he's doing a lot of stuff that I would have thought, given every way we build it up, would get national coverage. So violate my rule, 2-part question, Kristin. As Ed Koch used to say, how's the mayor doing? How's he doing? And is it getting less coverage than you thought it would?
No, I'll answer the second one and then the first one. But I would never really bought into the idea that he was going to be this, 24/7, kind of like when AOC popped out, like everyone talked about her all the time.
Sorry to interrupt you. Hillary Clinton's deposition is over, and Chairman Comer has told the press she answered most of our questions. Is that Comer live on CNN that I'm looking at? If so, I'd like to take that, please. Is that live?
I think it is, yeah.
Let's take that, please.
Now, we're following, everything. I know that there are a lot of eyes, and hopefully the media will play a role in this. The media has a role. The documents have been made public. We're going to continue to fight for more redactions. There are some names who are redacted. I think we all agree shouldn't be redacted. I don't think they're who you think they are. So that's why we want those names.
Chairman, if I could just add in real quick to follow up on that, though, we asked specifically the victims, and we were all there, as well as the Speaker and the Democrat members of Congress, if the president was involved, and they exonerated him. So why would we bring in the president of the United States, who's been exonerated, who cooperated with law enforcement, and who released the files when we had to fight? We basically threatened to hold the Clintons in contempt if they didn't want to come in. So to be clear, we had cooperation. We asked the victims directly, and he was exonerated. So I would encourage all of you to at least do the fair reporting and understanding that just like you would not publish false statements about the Clintons and some of the allegations that have been made about them, you would give the President of the United States the same respect.
And
Yeah, we're going where
also
the evidence
went
is
to law
leading
enforcement.
us.
Hey, Mr. Chairman,
Can I ask?
hold on a second, guys. Hold on, Mr. Chairman.
President
President Trump has released more files than anyone during the Biden administration. 0 files, no DOJ involvement. He has secured the border, lowered human trafficking, and passed the House Republicans, and President Trump has passed anti-human trafficking legislation just his first year.
Yeah.
And Mr. Cooler.
Yeah.
Transparency, as you guys said moments ago, can you release any findings that were discussed today? You said some.
We're going to release that video, and you'll be able to see the whole thing as quick as we can get the video produced. But I think what will be interesting
They have to get
is
to
some
Walmart
of the
and get it
comments that
developed.
Secretary Clinton made at the very end about Jeffrey Epstein. And I think that would apply to others that you all obviously have an interest in too. So,
Mr. Cooler, can I ask? You said that Bill Clinton is the man to ask questions of.
that's what Mrs. Clinton said many times today.
Why bring Hillary Clinton along?
Again, for the 15th time, this was a motion made by Democrats and Republicans in a subcommittee on oversight. There were a list of people to bring in, and Bill and Hillary Clinton were on the list. And I'm glad we brought Hillary Clinton in because she's never really answered questions until in the last week about her relationship with Epstein and Maxwell. So she answered questions, and hopefully they'll be helpful as we move forward. Go ahead, yes.
Are you now
On the
satisfied?
Clinton Global Initiative, was that your main focus today with Secretary Clinton, and do you feel like you got the answers you were looking for?
Well, I don't want to disclose too much of what was said, but most of the questions that we asked about the Clinton Global Initiative, which were very specific questions, some of them were backed by emails and other documents that have been released by the Department of Justice. She said that she was a senator, and you would have to ask her husband that tomorrow. So we have a lot of questions for her husband tomorrow, and I'm confident that deposition will last even longer than this one. So, all right, thank you all. Thank you all.
Okay. All right. Either of you struck by anything he said? No? Okay.
I'm surprised that so
yeah,
many other people speak, actually. I'm more surprised at that.
Yeah, that he let his colleagues have turn at the mic. Yeah, he typically doesn't. Good point. Okay. Let me ask you about one more thing, then we're going to go to community questions. And if the Democrats come out, we'll probably listen to that as well. And, of course, if Secretary Clinton does, we'd love to play that for you. Kristin, who's the smartest who's the smartest campaign operative you've ever known?
Oh my goodness, that's the hardest question. That's the hardest question. I mean, I know a lot of really smart people, and I'll frame it not in general because that wouldn't be fair because I know a lot of smart people. I'll frame it in terms of my career.
Yeah.
So I started working for Karl Rove and learned everything from him, and so
that's the correct answer.
Yeah.
Go with Karl.
But then I also now work with Jeff Rowe, who's also very.
All right, let's say Karl Rove is pretty good. Congressman, who's the smartest campaign strategist you've ever known?
I'd say on the Democratic side, Tyler Jones out of South Carolina, and on the Republican side, Michael Fortney.
Okay, two very smart people. Here's my question to you. In general, and don't be shy here. Don't be gracious. How much do you, in your dealings with reporters, how much do they know about how campaigns work in general? A lot, a little, none at all? Kristin.
The good ones know more than you think they do.
Yeah.
And the lazy ones know nothing.
Yeah. And what are some areas, Kristin, of campaigns, strategy, tactics that you think reporters in general, not everybody, but in general, are particularly ignorant about?
You know, there's always an article about a campaign changing their TV traffic, and this means they're losing, and that one always drives me nuts because they don't understand how it works.
Right.
When you shift traffic and change, shipping dates, it doesn't mean you're not going to be on TV. So then I've spent so much time on reporters reassuring them that just wait a day, you're going to see the $1 million tomorrow, and it's like sometimes they don't get it.
That's a great example, and they don't know what points even are. Congressman, when you deal with reporters about campaign tactics and strategy, where do you find areas of ignorance typically?
Well, I mean, it depends. Like, the dedicated political reporters obviously have a higher level of knowledge about the operations and things. With local news, the resources are often strained, and so the person's running from a political event over to a road closure, over to a murder scene. I mean, so they don't drill down too deep, and so you can skate by with just surface level answers.
Yeah. So my big complaint is people who do what I do for a living. They'll say they're political reporters, and really, politics is just like noise. If you're trying to figure out who's going to win, better to be a campaign reporter, because understanding how campaigns work is really usually a better explanation of what's going to happen. So my monologue on Next Up is about this topic, and I show a little bit of Jeff Rowe and Jamie Harrison talking from this program last night about how campaigns work, and particularly this question of who's better in different areas, where the asymmetrical advantages are in this cycle for the midterm. So I recommend that to you. And then James Rosen is on talking about his part 2 of his 3-part anthology of books about Justice Scalia. And we also play some Beatles trivia. So if you like the Beatles and you like hard trivia questions, I recommend that to you as well. All right, here we go. Bring in community members as you come in. Tell folks where you are, what's on your mind for Joe Cunningham and for Kristin, Davison. And we'll start here with you, sir. Charles, unmute. Tell everybody where you are. Go ahead.
Do I make it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I'm in Missouri, Southwest Missouri, and I listen to your program every night.
Thank you, sir.
If
Grateful
I can get in on the mornings, I try to do that too.
Thank you for that, sir.
The thing that I think bothers me more about what's been going on with with the Clintons, with Epstein, with everything, it gets to a point where I get overwhelmed by all the conversation. And I'm wondering, do we really get our representation from our congressmen and our senators when we get so mired down in all of the going and coming of everyone, this person, that person? And I understand it's important that we understand what happens in our government. But I thought the main function of government was to take care, like the President said last night, take care of its people. And to me, that's what the Congress needs to be doing when it comes to the bills, because I think those are some of the basic things that people I know are more interested in.
Yeah, Charles.
And I do understand it's very important that we do investigate and such, but it seems like that's all we do.
Charles, great question. A point I've heard over my career many times from folks. Congressman, there are so many people like Charles, tens of millions, who say, do your job, work of the will of the people, not these show investigations. So members of Congress are self-interested parties. How do you explain they disappoint so many when they do this stuff? Why do they keep doing it?
Well, I agree completely with Charles. I think a couple things to point out, and one I remind people back home about all the time when I served, is that the House Oversight is just one committee. There are tons of committees in which cameras, are not in, they don't cover, they do good work. Oftentimes bills pass under suspension, become law, and no one ever reads about it. Just like you never read about the planes that land, right? So there are things that do go on. But we're in a day and age where everything has become more and more sensationalized. There's a lot of, too many reasons to go into tonight, but gerrymandering, which has produced hyper-partisan members in congressional districts who go up there and try to make a name for themselves, or try to hit on these sensational stories that get media coverage, is a big problem. It's a huge problem. It's taking the focus off everyday Americans and the problems they actually face. There are a lot of big issues that are simply just not political and not partisan that we all face as Americans, but don't get the oxygen that it deserves, because it's the media is saturated by what sells. And people, despite your opinion, Charles, and I agree with you, people would rather tune in to talk about to listen to the Epstein hearing than some ag committee hearing.
That's unfortunate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kristin, question or comment for Charles?
Well, thanks for saying it, Charles. I feel like both Republicans and Democrats, you're going to get calls from both sides asking you to be in their campaign ad, because everything you just said could reflect what the one party complains about the other one for, right? Without even just looking within. I mean, this kind of is to my point of why, I really wish in the vice president's speech was really focusing on, the bacon that was brought home for the district. There is so much, and I think we'll see it in this election cycle, the discouragement in both parties that there isn't enough talk about them. And it is a, the fault of the media to some degree. It's the fault of just the, evolution from, news once a day to now once a minute. Continuous cycle. Reporters need clicks, and congressmen, if you're one of 435, like, you need to go and get your press conference and get your face in there so that people remember you. But there are, I will say there are a lot of good members who never do a press conference and never do a hit on cable news, and they work hard for their district, and they're probably not sweating their reelection this time, versus a lot of members who probably need to pay more attention of doing, going to their local news and talking about the, the new funding they brought for the bridge that's going to get fixed, versus what the latest thing the president said that they're outraged about. So there's no innocent party here. I think both need to work on it. But I think what you just said is going to be the underlying theme of this midterm election.
Charles, I don't want to put you on this. I don't want to put you on the spot, Charles. But before you go, can you think of somebody in public life, either now or over the course of your life, who you think did it the right way, who did it in a way that you thought was true to the wishes and needs of the constituents? Sorry, I need to stop you, Charles. Secretary Clinton speaking. Let's go to that, please.
I knew, and what I knew is what I said in my statement this morning. I never met Jeffrey Epstein, never had any connection or communication with him. I knew Ghislaine Maxwell casually as an acquaintance. But whatever they asked me, I did my very best to respond. It was disappointing that they refused to hold a public hearing, so I wouldn't have to be out here characterizing it for you. You could have seen it for yourself. We had asked for that. We think it would have been better for the committee and its efforts to gather whatever information they are seeking. We had a bit of a challenge in the beginning because we had agreed upon rules based on the fact it was going to be a closed hearing at their demand, and one of the members violated that rule, which was very upsetting because it suggested that they might violate other of our agreements. So we had to cease the hearing for a period of time until we could get assurances that no rules would be broken going forward, and we returned to answer questions repetitively, literally over and over again. I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein. I never went to his island. I never went to his homes. I never went to his offices. So it's on the record numerous times. It then got, at the end, quite unusual because I started being asked about UFOs and a series of questions about Pizzagate, one of the most vile, bogus conspiracy theories that was propagated on the internet, that was serving as the basis of a member's questions to me. So I can only say that the best exchange that I had came at the very end, when, contrary to every other deposition they have taken, no Republican member asked any questions about Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell to anyone else they have deposed. And in fact, the Republican members didn't even show up for the deposition of Les Wexner. And when I said that, I had to point out that the only questions that any Republican member asked of any of the people they deposed was of former Attorney General Bill Barr, when Chairman Comer asked him about the allegations, in his view, about Russia's involvement in my election in 2016. So at the very end of this hearing, after I made that point, I want to commend Chairman Comer for raising a series of significant questions that I responded to about the nature of the investigation and the areas that I thought should be explored. So I appreciated that. I want to see the truth come out. So that was a reassuring way to end a very long, repetitive deposition.
Madam Secretary, you spoke in your opening remarks about how heartbroken you have been for the Epstein survivors as these files have come out. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you have processed and reacted to the fact that the former president, your husband, Bill Clinton, is referencing the Epstein files numerous times, including in some photos featuring women? And how have you been personally preparing for the deposition that is coming tomorrow? Are you 100% confident that there isn't anything that the former president knows about Epstein's crimes?
I am, and I think the chronology of the connection that he had with Epstein ended several years before anything about Epstein's criminal activities came to light, and that he was charged and sadly given a sweetheart deal, which, as I said in my statement, had that not happened, perhaps
lost that feed.
Or his criminal pleas in 2008 were like most people. They did not know what he was doing. And I think that that is exactly what my husband will testify to tomorrow.
Madam Secretary, can I ask? Why was Ghislaine Maxwell?
Do you believe this was a fair hearing? And do you still want to testify publicly, even though you gave this deposition?
Oh, I'm not going to do it again. They had a chance to do it in public, and I wish they had done it in public. And I think they're making the wrong decision, avoiding doing it in public. I thought it was very repetitive. I thought that they asked literally the same questions over and over again, which didn't seem to me to be very productive. And then, as I said, toward the end, there were other questions that were totally off subject. So if they are going to fulfill their responsibilities to literally investigate the investigations, which is what they originally said was the scope of their work, I think they could have spent the day more productively.
Madam Secretary, can I ask? James Matthews from Sky News. Can I ask, why was Ghislaine Maxwell invited to your daughter Chelsea Clinton's wedding in 2010? She'd already been mentioned in a civil lawsuit by Virginia Giuffre before that. Jeffrey Epstein had already been convicted before that.
She came as the +1, the guest of someone who was invited.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Okay. Either of you catch either of your ears from that?
I think this is a good lesson, and for our side, doing these hearings, they never should have let her do that press conference second. They should have had her go out. They should have had it live. Leave no doubt, because now the Clintons are going to say, we wanted to do it live. Why didn't you show the people everything? And we look like we hit it. We being Republicans, they should have had it live, and they should have let her go out first. So then Comer could have come out and looked like he was in control, and now we're closing up and going on the next one. So it's a good lesson for the Republican communicators there running that show.
Yeah. Congressman?
Yeah, I think it worked out well for her, and it worked out better for Democrats than Republicans if you're looking at it from a strictly partisan standpoint.
Yeah. The reporter who wanted to ask her about the photos of her husband with women in the Epstein files made the classic mistake of asking a multi-part question. So Secretary Clinton had the opportunity to answer the part of the question she wanted to answer, which was about whether her husband knew of anything Jeffrey Epstein did that's illegal. But tomorrow will be more interesting. I feel pretty confident. I'm almost never correct, but I will tell you that moments ago, Netflix announced that they were dropping their bid for Warner Brothers Discovery and yielding to the superior offer to Paramount. And I will also tell you that had they tried to counteroffer and somehow produced an offer that was better than perceived as better than the Paramount offer, Paramount would have offered again. And it's testament to how big a mismatch this was, which I've said from the start, that they couldn't even make a counteroffer to bid up to force Paramount to spend more because they couldn't get close. And I'm not even sure their original offer, the previous offer, was better than what Paramount did. So if this does go forward now, the same company that owns CBS News will own CNN, and that alone is going to be a fascinating thing. There's implications for other parts of media, but if the same company owns those two fabled news organizations, two of the 5 or 6 places in America that do broadcast and cable news, television news, owned by the same place, that's going to be quite an interesting development. Congressman, thank you for being here again. Grateful to you. Kristin, thank you for being here. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, morning meeting back on. Larry O'Connor and Kevin Walling will join me. It's Friday. We'll have winners and losers of the week and what to look for. We'll have more on Iran, more on the Clinton deposition. I don't know if we'll have the video by then, but maybe I'll text Congressman Boebert and see if she'll give me some of it. And then this program will conclude the week tomorrow. Early start for us tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Friday's episode of Two-Way Tonight. So I'll see you at 9 a.m. and at 4 p.m. on tomorrow, on Friday. Grateful to Congressman, to Kristin, and to all of you for being part of the community. Have a great night, everybody.